So there is one skill when it comes to growing your marketing agency that is the most important skill. This is the one thing that objectively can double your revenue, triple your revenue just by being a tiny bit better at actually doing this. And this video, I'm going to cover the most common of these. So what we're talking about here is objection handling. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to handle the most common objection, why this is so important, sort of the idea and the thinking of the prospect when we actually go into this. And I'm going to talk to you about why this actually is so effective. And if you can handle this and if you can manage this, if you can get this skill done and this objection specifically, you're going to make a whole lot more money. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Ben Lister. I help agency owners to save thousands of hours by doing their outreach for them, which means they can obviously work on their agency rather than working in their agency. The objection that I'm talking about here is the classic, I need to think about it. I need to mull this one over. I always wait a while for my decisions, whatever it may be. And this objection, we refer to it as a smokescreen. Now, what a smokescreen is it is when a prospect gives you an objection. And to define an objection is when you present your price, you say to the prospect, hey, this is how much it is, let's go ahead with it. And they say no. But what they say is, instead of actually saying no, they say, well, I need to think about it, right? So they're saying no right now, maybe they're going to do it in the future, but what they're saying right now is no, I need to think about it, okay? And so this is the objection. And the reason that this is a smokescreen is because it's not really the true objection, okay? And what you'll find is that when you first start doing sales, or if you haven't done too many sales goals, or if you haven't had much sales training, is that it's very easy to believe the prospect and to take their word for it and to say, this person needs a bit of time because I'm charging them $2,000 for the month. It's going to take a bit of time for them to actually go and think about this, right? In actual fact, when they say to you that they need to think about this, right, the reason that they need to think about this is for something else, right? It's not a true objection. They're not objecting to your service. They're not saying, I'm not going ahead with this because I need to think about it. They're not going ahead with it because of something else which they're not telling you. And there's a reason for that. Obviously, the reason they need to think about it is because they don't like the price. They think it's too much money. Maybe they aren't convinced that you're the right person for them. So they need to think, am I willing to actually trust this person and to pay this person if I'm not too confident? And then the other objection is the logistics of things. So basically, a logistics would be, I'm not really ready to go ahead right now. We've just hired a new person, something like that, right? And so those are the three real objections. And if someone says, I need to think about this, I normally take a couple of days to go over my decisions. At this point, you know that they are giving you some kind of smoke screen because it is one of the three. And the reason that they're giving you, the reason that we know that it's a smoke screen, for example, is because the reason they need to think about it is because of one of those three. Okay. And so with a normal objection, if someone tells you, for example, it's too much money, it's more expensive than I thought it would be, I can't afford that, right? You can actually handle that objection head on and you can say, how much did you expect it to be, blah, blah, blah. And you can go down your own price objection handling framework, right? But when it comes to the think about it framework, we're not looking to handle that objection head on. What we're looking to do is actually discover the real objection. So the way that we handle it is a little bit different. The goal that you're looking for is to get the prospect to actually say one of the three things that we talked about, whether it's money, whether it's fear, whether it's logistics. People say that they need to think about it because when it comes to one of those objections, the real objections that it can be, oftentimes they can be not embarrassed, but they are just reluctant to actually say what they're thinking. A lot of people don't want to talk about the fact that they don't have the money for that. They can't really afford that. A lot of people don't want to openly tell you, hey, I don't believe what you're saying. I don't think you're the right person for this, because it is a little bit awkward and, it's not something that someone wants to do, especially if you've just gone through the service. So if the salesperson says to you, what do you think about this? How do you think it looks? You're unlikely to be like, this is terrible, I would never buy this, I hate it, right? You were much more likely to be like, oh no, yeah, it looks good, it looks good, I think this can work for me, yeah. And then when it comes to the pricing of things, like, I've just said it's good, so I can't be like, oh no, it's shocking, I'm really concerned about this, I don't think you're the right person, you are not the person that I'm going to be buying from today. So instead they'll give you the, let me get back to you, I'll think about it, right? The prospect isn't really doing anything wrong here. They're not really doing anything that's like mean or nasty or anything like that. They're not being a bad person as such. They're almost being nice to you, right? They're kind of letting you off lightly. Oftentimes, if a prospect says to you, just give me a day to come back on this, or we'll go over it on the weekend, or let's schedule up next week and we'll go through this, you'll find that they don't show up. You'll find that they're not actually interested because they're not telling you everything. That because they've maybe given you a compliment, they've said that the service is good, you've asked them, what's your thinking here? Do you like this? And they've said, yeah, it looks great, this can help me. So now they can't go back on that, right? So they will often just want to get off the call as quickly as possible, get out of there because the price is more than they thought, or they don't think it's going to work. They would rather not have this whole... They would rather not confront the person that's selling. Some people will. Obviously, some people won't give you an rejection. Some people will just say, nope, that's too much, and straight up, just tell you how it is. But a lot of people will be like, oh no, I need to think about this. We got to take some time. I normally speak to my wife about this one, right, etc., etc. And this is something that I was told by a lot of the sales mentors that I've had in the past, a lot of the sales training that I've done. But it really only clicked for me until I was in the same situation. So I took a sales call, about a year ago now. This is when it really started to click with me. Like, I was doing what the prospects were doing to me. And I think actually this is a good thing for you to do sometimes, where if you're struggling with sales, it's something like you're facing a common objection and you can't really understand like the way that the prospects is thinking, and you're not really grasping why the prospects are leaving and why they're giving you these objections. I think a good thing to do is to just, find a service that you like, that you might be interested in, book a call and go through the whole process, answer the questions, let them hit you with their questions, and then see what you want to say, right? And see what objections that you have personally. Obviously, if you like the service, then you can actually go and buy it if you have no objections, right? But a lot of time, just by putting yourself in the prospect's shoes and being on the other end of the call sometimes gives you a much better understanding of what's actually going on. I think someone can say this to you, like I can say this to you, or someone that you've had sales training from can say this to you, but it doesn't actually fully click until you have experienced it yourself, if that makes sense. It doesn't really compute in your head until you've been in that situation, the way that you're thinking because you're just doing it naturally. And then you start to see, hang on a minute, this was what exactly British person on YouTube told me, and now all of a sudden it's starting to make sense, right? And that's kind of what I did, but I did a bit on accident. Maybe I should have jumped on a sales call before I'd even done my own sales call and realized how this thing goes. This is obviously so important because I think I get to think about objection maybe 50% of the time. If you can actually overcome that, if you can weave your way from the smokescreen to the real objection, then at that point you have a much higher chance of actually closing the sale. And sales is obviously the one skill where if you double your sales conversion rate, then you are literally double the amount of revenue you generate. And so the objections is almost like the king of that, right? Oftentimes, maybe 70% of your calls will get to the objection phase. You'll offer someone and then you'll get to the objection phase. And if you're losing 3 out of 4 of those, if you're losing, 75% of those, and you can get that down to just 50%, that is a huge section. You're talking 40% more revenue there just because you know how to handle objections, which is kind of mental. If you can get to the point where you have a wide range of objections that you can handle, and you've done this time and time again, you have a process that actually works, then at this point, if you can remove that 70% of your calls objections and you can make only 10% of that 70 actually don't close, you're going to 5x your revenue at that point. So this is why it's one of the most important things. This is why it's more important than actually the service that you offer. It's more important than the logo that you have and the website that you have and all that kind of stuff. If you have a good sales team, if you know what you're doing on the phone, you're going to sell so much, and objections is really the key to the castle when it comes to this. And so how to actually handle the think about it objection, right? First of all, if a prospect says to you, you've given them your price, you say, hey, it's $2,000 for the month, this is what we can do, let's get you started. And the prospect says, okay, yeah, no problem, just give me a few days to think about this and then we can pick this up in a few times. If you just send me over the information on an email. If you got that smoke screen then and they throw you that objection, you want to first of all agree with them, right? You say, okay, John, that is no problem, not a problem here. And then you ask these specific words, I'll tell you which words specifically, but then you ask, can I ask John, in your own opinion, do you feel like what we do can get you to where you want to go? And we say feel. You have to say that. Obviously you can change it. You can say, John, can I just ask in your opinion, or something like that, right? But as long as we say opinion, as long as we say feel, and as long as we say opinion and as long as we say feel, then this objection handling framework will work. And 90% of the time, the prospect will say, yes, I do feel it can, right? If they say no, then you need to go back through the discovery phase. You need to understand a little bit more about the prospect and understand, what's going on here. If you get this more and more often, then you need to work on your pitch and actually your service, because clearly the pitch and your service is the bottleneck here, not the objection handling. But most of the time, they will say yes. If they give you if they don't use your language, for example, so if they say, I think so, I think it can, if they say, I think so, or I think it can, when you've asked, John, in your opinion, do you feel like it can? Then you need to go back through, right? So if they say, I think it can, we've obviously gone from a positive here. So we're asking them, do you feel like it can? And then now we need to go to a negative. If they've asked, I think so, or they haven't said the word feel, they're not playing along with our question. And so the negative would be, okay, John, no problem. Well, in your opinion, do you feel like there's anything missing here from our service? Or do you feel like there's anything here that won't get you to, the $10,000 a month that you're looking to? And then at this point, almost every single time, the prospect will be like, no, there's not, right? So they're playing on with your words. They're following on the process now. I don't feel like there's anything missing as such, okay? And so now we have this agreement in place. So what we've done here is we've asked the prospect, do you feel like this can actually work for you? And they've said, yes, I do, right? Either by saying yes or either by saying, I think so. And then we've asked them, well, is there anything missing? And they've said, no. So they've agreed that the service is something that they're looking for. And then we ask a specific question. So we say, okay, why do you feel like it can? Or specifically, what about our service makes you feel like it can? And then at this point, they're going to talk about, oh, I like the lead nurturing that you do. I think the advertising that you do is good. And we're getting a tie down here. So what we're doing is actually confirming with the prospect there's one service specifically, or one part of our service specifically that they like. And so now we're getting a double confirmation, right? They've told you that they actually feel like this can get you to 10K a month. And now we're talking about, okay, it can because of this very specific reason. And so once we have that, we have an agreement in place. And so now we ask the question. And so then we say, okay, yeah, that sounds great. When you do go and when you do think about this, what might come up for you just to see if I can handle it now, right? And what we're doing with this question and this whole process really is we're basically asking the question, it's like, what are you thinking about? But we're doing it in a way so we're almost cornering them, right? We're saying, so you do think this service works for you? Yes. And you think it works for you because of this? Yes. Okay. And so when you do go and think about it, what is going to come up with you then? If you do think that the service works for you and you think of it because of this, so what is going to come up for you? And we're saying it in a much friendlier way. We're saying it in a way that really pulls them in first. It almost makes them play their cards first. And so we use their cards against them. We say, okay, well, if it does work for you and you do feel like it can, and you feel like it can because of this very specific reason, then what is it that's going to come up for you? And then this is the point where they might say, it's a lot of money, right? And as soon as they say that, now we've handled this objection. Well, we've moved away from this smoke screen. And so now we're going on to the money objection, right? But sometimes the prospect will come back and they will say, I normally just take a while for these decisions. Okay, sometimes these decisions just take me a couple of days. They might say something to the effect of decisions like this take a while. And at that point, you can say, sorry, how do you mean like decisions like this? And then they'll say, yeah, a lot of money. And so that's obviously when we go down the money path, right? But if, for example, they just say, just takes me a bit of time to think about this, then we go through the whole process again. But what we like to do is we like to add on a couple extra words. And you say, okay, John, no, that makes sense. You just take some time, yeah. Just to confirm, John, you do feel like what we do can get you to where you want to go. Yeah, no, I do. Okay, John. And so you feel this way because of the specific part of the service that we talked about? Yeah. Okay, no, that's great. In your opinion then, can I ask then, when you do go and you do think about this, what is going to come up for you then? And this is, we're getting closer to the question that is, why do you need to think about it? But we're saying it in a much more subtle way. So we're basically just going back through and we're pulling through and we're saying, so you do agree, and you agree because of this very specific reason. And so what is it? And then if we just keep at them and we just basically, we are subtly saying to them, look, I know that there's something else. You've got to basically tell me what it is because I'm not going to give up until you do. And you can go through 3 or 4 cycles like that. And eventually, if the person is not budging, you can basically, a technique that I've done in the past where you pause the recording, you stop and you just say, look, I know there's something else here. Let's be honest with each other. What is it, right? And this rarely happens. This is not going to happen. It's going to be like a 1 in 10 times this happens. But it is a cool way to actually just put someone on the spot and, handle that smoke screen. So it is a cool way to just basically put someone on the spot and actually handle that smoke screen yourself. So that is basically how you handle the objection. If you're able to do that, then you're going to convert so many more sales. It's going to be not even funny. And so that is basically how you handle this objection. And if you do this every single time, you're going to turn. And so that is how you actually handle this objection. And basically, if you do this every single time, you're going to convert so many more sales, you're going to convert so much more revenue, and your sales are going to be a lot easier than they have been in the past. So if you are actually looking for someone to book more of these sales calls for you so you can handle more of these smoke screens objections, go ahead and click the first link in the description. It's not some crazy, I'm not going to ask for your email or your phone number or anything. I don't really care if you click it or not. It's just a video of me explaining what we do, how it works. But yeah, if you liked the video, go ahead and click the like button. Obviously, comment if you want me to go through anything else. Subscribe if you want to watch more. Appreciate you watching this one all the way to the end, and cheers. Take care.